Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Fulton Overcoming. So my guest today is someone that came from the quilt I grew up in, Restoration City. Her and her family came in about 1997 to 2001 and pretty much came to volunteer, help out, saw some good things that they wanted to be a part of. And along the way, started noticing some red flags and weird things started happening. So decided to get out of Dodge. She is here to tell her story today and some of those experiences. So gonna go ahead and welcome Anita. Hello.
Hello, my name is Anita, not Taylor. It says Taylor on the bottom.
Oh, okay. Okay, yes. That is your daughter, yes.
Yeah, that's my son, yeah.
Oh, son. Oh, sorry.
I named my son.
I got mixed up. Well, thank you so much for doing this and taking time out.
Thank you. We really appreciate what you're doing, and you are the Johnny Carson of this channel because you make everyone feel at ease. I'm sitting here doing this and I'm not scared.
That's good.
I know. You're really good at making everybody feel at ease.
Well, good. That's what I kind of
So anyone who's scared, they should reconsider because it's something that you can do.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you would think.
Yeah.
I think some people have it in their head like it's this big or deep. I mean, it is a big thing, but it's this big, like, like just so. And the first time I ever was on any kind of podcast, I definitely was nervous, but you kind of get used to it and you kind of anxiety.
And then there's pulling up all the bad feelings too. And it comes back. So you start dreaming about it again,
Yeah, for sure.
There's just a feeling that comes over you.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you guys stayed for a little bit. Do you kind of just want to explain why you and your family ended up going out there? Because this place is about 45 minutes south of Houston, Texas, and a really small town, and you guys were living in Houston, but decided to come along. So do you kind of want to explain some of that?
Absolutely. We had connections through my husband who had gone through the program when he was a teenager. And he had kept in touch with a wonderful lady that was there. And I thought, oh, they just have a great connection. Well, I found out that this lady has connections with everyone. She was the heart and soul of the center, as they call it. And so they were writing and calling each other. And she invited us to one of the graduations that they had. So we went there. And it just looked wonderful. And we started thinking, well, this looks like a worthy thing. We may start going to church here. And at that time, they'd started the church with, in Southwest Houston, they had a big area, big building. And so we started traveling 45 minutes to church there. And I did want to mention too, that Scott stayed in good graces with the center. He graduated and continued to tithe, which was apparently unusual. And David would always hold him up as a great example of somebody who supports the center. So the pastor would hold up my ex-husband and as an example. But so that's how we got involved. We started going to church there at the services in Houston. And it was still, excuse me, it was still a 45-minute drive. So, and then of course, super long services.
For sure. There were still long services going on then, I guess, too. We called that Rogerdale area because it was off that street.
Oh yeah, it was Rogerdale. That's right. Yeah. Oh, those services, I'd never seen anything like that. I'd never been in a service that long. And you just start getting bladder infections. I mean, I think I went for a while when I was pregnant, and it's just hard to hang in there. I finally asked the assistant pastor why the services had to be so long. And he said, well, you can leave anytime you want to. And what do you say? I imagine me walking out of that. No, I don't think that'd go.
That is not true whatsoever.
Yeah, even in our visitor status at that point, I still think they'd look down on it.
Yeah. What was your first, do you remember the first service you ever came to, what you thought?
Oh, I just thought it was fantastic. I was impressed. First of all, that there's somebody with a great purpose, making a difference in the world. All of us want that. You know, we don't want to go join a cult. You don't want to go join some weird cult that tells you to do things that you don't want to do. You're looking at these people are making a difference. And to my error, I thought that they were hearing from God, that they had an inside ear and the spirit was moving. You know, I was pretty open to all that. So, and this was a, as you know, a charismatic church, or so you're seeing people falling down in the spirit and talking in tongues and going up and singing songs that just come to them from God.
Did you ever get up and sing the song of the Lord?
I didn't at first, but eventually I did. And as you said in some of the other videos, there was a lot of pressure to do that, you know, and it never was spoken to me. I think somebody said something to the one videos that I've watched.
Yeah.
But I felt pressure and I needed to be a part of it. And then you want to be spiritual, you know, you want to hear from God too. If they're hearing from God, then you want to too, which I think is a big error. I think everything you want to hear is already written, but.
Yeah. And let me just explain real quick, these services, which I think I have a little bit explained before, but these services were so long. I mean, you start at 10:30 till like 3 in the afternoon. You're speaking in tongues, which is like Rosho, Mosho, Toto, whatever it is. It's like this language you come up with to God when you're praying or interceding, and you don't really know what to say to God. And it's just these long services, and they would do a couple songs that were actual songs, and then lead into the song of the Lord, and people having to sing what's on their heart towards God. It gives me such anxiety just even thinking about that now. I'm like, thinking back then, like you have to do this and this, and for someone that's young or someone that's whatever age you are, it's just, you know, especially if you don't have a good voice, you're like, scared out of your mind.
Yeah. So I just want to go back to that part about going to church there, though. There were yearly trips to Europe, and they would have it up on the screen in this big church and all the views and all the beautiful scenes. And these are places that I've been. I grew up overseas. So I grew up in London, traveled many of the places that they traveled. And I'm watching this going, wow, they're saying it's missions that they're going on. And I'm thinking, Europe is pretty closed for missions. They've got their religion set in. England is staunch, you know, and it just, I couldn't imagine how those were missions. It just seemed a little hokey to me that was going on. So anyway, and then another thing happened that we were really coming in with a lot of hopes. I think it's pretty comparable to someone that's going into a relationship. You want it to be perfect. You want this person to be your soulmate. And so we really had a lot of high hopes, and that's our fault. You know, you feel like you take some responsibility for things that happened, and it's a church, for God's sake. You know, there's going to be people, all sorts of people in there, and there will be problems. So that's understandable. But we were told, my son was 5 at the time, and we were told, oh, we don't watch Power Rangers, and we don't do this, and we don't do, you know, all these shows that they don't watch because they're not godly. And then hearing from someone else about the elders' kids all watching something, I don't even remember what it was, but it was something I would never let my kids watch at any age, you know. And it wasn't pornographic or anything. It wasn't bad, but it was way beyond their years, and it wasn't something godly. And so we're like, oh my gosh, they're saying one thing and they're doing another. This is devastating. We start calling, you know, not all the elders, but several people that we knew, we got to talk, because this is bothering us, that this is going on. And so they met with us. We actually met with David, And I don't remember what they said, but they gave me an answer or gave us an answer that satisfied us and we were able to move on. I don't know what it was. It might have been, there's some freedom in the spirit, our kids, I don't know what excuse. It's
Whatever,
been too long. I can't remember, but I was, and we looked at each other and said, where are we going to go if this doesn't work out? Because we'd been to a bunch of dead churches, and we were really hoping to find something good. So anyway, and then the other thing that happened at that church was there were many rooms off to the side and they would use them for Sunday school or, offices or whatever. And I was in there, I was constantly dealing with bladder infections. So I think I was in there recuperating from that. I can't remember. It may have been pregnancy. I'm not sure. But I was just sitting down there and drinking and trying to feel better. And the assistant pastor came in and disciplined his son. And it sounded horrific. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. The child was wailing and the assistant pastor was laying into him and yelling. And it just sounded like someone was being beaten up, not disciplined. And if I remember right, the lady that I told you that was so influential, if I remember right, she used to tell me, never spank with your hand, never spank in anger. She had some really good things to say. And she would always be right by my side when I was talking to her about problems with the kids. And so that didn't match what she was saying. I thought it was kind of strange. But again, you sweep things under the rug. It's like being in love. You go, oh, well, I bet that kid did something really bad. But she didn't, I'm sure. Nothing was that bad.
And that's the kind of discipline that was going on there. And that was almost every household was doing that with their own kids. And then eldership was doing that with the single moms and their kids. It just, that's something that has a lasting effect on kids. I mean, I still have memories of being spanked and it just isn't pleasant.
Oh, that's just terrible. Well, it was a seedy underbelly and we did not see everything that was under that log. We were sitting around the house and my ex-husband was doing woodworking and I was doing stuff in the house, and we just looked at each other and we're like, there's got to be more to life than this, just living for ourselves. We really like what the center's doing and how they're making a difference in the world. And so we just decided we're going to sell the house, which is a beautiful house, pack up our stuff in a U-Haul and go live there. And we had been encouraged to come live there too, not pressured or anything, but encouraged. And David had said something about me possibly, I had just recently stayed home as I was a stay-home mom as a teacher with Cypress Fairbanks. And so he had said something about, well, you can help us get our school together and get everybody organized and, maybe even start a in-classroom school. So I was like, yeah, that I could have a purpose. And my ex was excited about it. We didn't have not too many doubts, not enough to stop us, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys move on campus and everything. And how long were you there before red flags started popping up?
Oh, I think we moved along for a couple of years just fine and telling everybody how wonderful it was and how somebody got completely healed. Jesus healed them, that's some story that we'd heard or, that somebody had told us. So we were big advocates for this place and really thinking that we were the chosen few. And so I'll have to say I went along many years and wanting to be a part but there was still this underlying loneliness. I was kind of surprised that I didn't feel as integral of a part that I thought I would. There was a big, I looked it up and I tried to find the verse, but it was something about heal the brokenhearted, set the lonely and fan. They had that painted up on the wall. I remember looking at it. Maybe it was at the entrance. I don't know if it's still there or not. but I was like, yeah, that's what we need. We need to be part of a family. I'm an only child, and I've got some other issues in the back that really help to help me to become a victim of a cult. I don't think everyone's like that, but I think I was prime fodder for that type of thing, because I was looking for someone who knew more than me and wanted to control me. I mean, I didn't actually think that, but anyway, so I just felt very lonely. I remember one Christmas driving around and just thinking, I've never been so lonely in my life. And there was a distance there that was created by such accountability that you couldn't do anything without somebody knowing and somebody running and telling. And so you were often in fear of being revealed or, yelled at or whatever. I'll get into that later. I didn't go into counseling, but a few times. So, but there's just this general feel. I mean, everybody has to keep their distance, because if you get too close and you start talking about your weaknesses, they really get blown up. And there's another narcissistic trait. You cannot tell a narcissist your weaknesses. And it was run that way, to where they'll take them and run with them. So anyway, but okay, so I'm trying to think. The work was probably a beginning feeling like there's something wrong. I had 2 young children, and I really needed to pay attention to them. I just am a type of mother. My mom stayed home, and I wanted to be with them. And you get there, and you've got to volunteer at the front desk, and you've got to volunteer for Sunday school and this and that. And so the volunteering got out of hand for me. I remember a time when I had clothes all over the sofa and dishes in the sink. And I was asked to go over to the pastor's daughter's house and help them. She was living with another person at that time. And so, I left my house in havoc. And I go over there and ask her, well, what do you want me to do? And she said, well, you can dust my curio cabinet. And I open it up, and there's no dust on it. And I think it's funny because I dusted that thing. It had no dust on it. And I'm leaving my children. I mean, your kids end up in the nursery all the time. Andrea, little baby, she ended up in the nursery all the time because I was answering phones or helping out or whatever. And I don't think I got it as bad as some of the single moms. I think single moms really got squeezed. But I felt it because my family came second, and that bothered me. That's not right.
For sure.
So
were you guys both like volunteering or helping out full time there?
Yes.
And your ex, did y'all get paid at all?
No, I think that was kind of a misunderstanding on my part, because he's like, oh, we'll put you on staff and you can be our teacher, our principal of the school. And I'm not sure where Scott was fitting in at that point, but he eventually went into building houses and woodworking with one of the elders there. But so I thought, oh man, we're in. I didn't expect big money, but I expected something. We got on campus. I realized that I wasn't going to get paid anything, but I heard that all the people that were highly involved were getting meals delivered to them at their house. And I assumed my place at the table there, as the verse says. And I went to Grandma Kershke and said, where do I go to get the meal ticket? And she looked at me like I was out of my mind. We're not giving you a meal ticket. So no food, nothing. And when we did start the school, we had to do it completely on our own. And that was a shock, because how do you start a school without money? You need supplies, you need paper, you need chalk, pencils, whatever. And
let me just explain real quick what you're talking about. So there is about a 1 to 2 year period there on campus where we started a school with it, because everybody homeschooled. You were not allowed to go to the public school, which was about 15, 20. The next The nearest school over was about 15 to 20 minutes away. So you were not allowed. I don't know why, still to this day, I'm like, they didn't want us to experience the world, I guess. I have no idea, but we were not allowed to go. So they decided to try out this, like, well, why don't we try to start our own school here? We'll get the curriculum and stuff. And which, I mean, it only lasted about a year or two. So
Yeah.
you were the principal of that, right?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. There are a lot of stories with that one. But when I tried to get chalk for the school, I just asked David, just like I did Grandma Kirschke, about the meal tickets. I said, well, we need some money for school supplies. Oh, no, we can't do that. We can't afford that. And he said, you can have a bake sale. And boy, the brat in me just riled up. I was like, I am not having a bake sale for chalk. It made me mad. I have this demeanor that I'm real easygoing, but I'm one of those passive, rebellious people. I was when I was a kid. And I was like, dang, I am not doing that. And one of the other ladies went ahead and had the bake sale. I was like, I'm not making one thing and I'm not buying one thing. And so at that point, I was a little pissed. And I just went to class like, I'm going with nothing, and they'll get half an effort if they're going to be that way. I was really unhappy with so we're getting to the school here too. I was really unhappy with the curriculum. And being a teacher, you want to be involved, you want to get kids motivated. I mean, I knew things that worked with kids, and I got there and they had the most boring, dry curriculum. I'm sure it was good, but they read through books. So when the school got started, that's basically what it was. You had your workbooks and you turn the page and you read the question. And if you have something you don't understand, you ask, and then you turn the page. And it wasn't a teaching school at all. We didn't go into fun lessons or anything motivating. I thought that was really depressing. But somewhere along there, they decided to find out where everybody was. I'm not sure if it was, I don't know whose idea it was. It doesn't matter. But they decided to have some standardized tests done. And they did testing for everyone on the campus, all the kids. That involved ordering the materials. I mean, these things are sealed. There's a certain procedure for everything. And you rip it open and you stand there and you monitor the test. Nothing is done without exact procedure. And before we had administered the test, I had something that had to be done with there was some procedure that I told David about it, and he's like, oh no, we're going to do it this way. And I didn't know what to say because that wasn't an option. You couldn't ruin the test. Now, honestly, I don't remember what it was, but it was something that was not okay. I even called the company that gave the test and said, he wants to do this, and is this okay? And they're like, no, you're going to completely nullify the test. So I told them that. And I just got reamed. I mean, I didn't know what a narcissist was back then, but I know now. And I think a lot of us do now. And you don't confront a narcissist. You do not tell them they've done something wrong, or they are thinking something wrong. They're perfect and they know everything. So his wrath came down on me, and I was such a fool. I was like, well, you can't do it that way because blah, blah, blah. And he's like, do I need to pull you into counseling? I will yank you in.
Like you're a child or something.
Oh yeah. And it was
like you're a child. You're a grown adult who is a teacher, like an actual, like, you know what you're talking about. That's so
exactly. And this is typical of someone like this. You could be, I know other people, that's part of my story, is I know other people like this. You could be a brain surgeon and you don't know how to tie your shoelaces around a narcissist. They're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt for anything because they're the smartest in the room. So that was a red flag there. I went to one of the other elders' wives and talked to her. I said, man, this is right. I know it's right. And what he's doing is wrong. And how do I handle this? And wasn't close with anyone. I didn't go to this other person that I thought so highly of. Anyway, it was an elder's wife. And she said, well, you just need to trust that David knows what's right. And even if it's off, it'll all work out and he'll be fine. And it'll be fine. It just wasn't the answer I wanted. And I was trying to recall this so I could tell the story, but I do recall somehow he came around on his own and decided he wasn't going to do it that way. I encouraged him to go on the site. I encouraged him to call them, ask, and I don't know how he turned around, but he did, thank God.
Something must have happened. Someone must have talked to him, or he must have.
I don't know, but he never said, oops,
he doesn't just change his mind like that. Like,
yeah. So anyway, the kids were all tested.
I remember that test. I was so scared. I remember taking.
Oh.
I was so freaking nervous because I knew I wouldn't know. I knew that I wouldn't know any of the answers to anything.
Did you have test anxiety, or were you scared you'd be found out that you were a little behind?
In general, I have test anxiety. Still to this day, I cannot. I'll know stuff, but I have such anxiety that I can't even answer the questions. My mind just goes to blank. It just goes blank. Everything goes blank.
So be encouraged that your scores did not reflect what you were capable of, because that really skewed it.
What does that mean? They were not
smarter.
I remember, it was not good what came back, and I almost got spanked. My dad almost spanked me.
No.
And I was so because they were so mad that I was so behind. But how do you expect for freaking homeschooling and full-time traveling on straightway? How do you expect kids to when you're giving all your time to traveling on this team and not getting paid anything, and then volunteering whenever you come back to babysit their damn kids?
Exactly. I know, you're spread so thin. I can't imagine. Well, first of all, it's so wrong to discipline a child for having a bad score on the test. You discipline for willful disobedience. That's like spilt milk. You can't control that. And second of all, we always were told that if the child doesn't learn, then you need to teach it a different way. So guess what? That reflected on the people that were teaching you. I'm not trying to say anything bad about your mom and dad, but if you didn't do well, then they should have done a better job,
Yeah, for sure.
Unless there's something wrong with you. And most people, there's nothing wrong. They can learn just like everybody else. So the discipline there is mind-boggling.
It's just insane. I don't know if it's changed now. Maybe it's changed somewhat now, because nowadays you cannot spank your kids. You can't discipline the way you did back in the 90s. It was just a different world back then.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. Well, after all the tests came out, we did have school at some time. And like I said, we were in that classroom turning pages. And there's some more to that story, but I'll go into it in just a minute. I'm trying to stick with the subject, but because the test scores came back so poorly and other problems with the school, the kids ended up going to public school.
Yeah, so you guys are doing the schooling part in the middle of all of this. During this time, I mean, obviously there's some red flags popping up with David acting the way that he does and everything, being the narcissistic that he is. Was there other red flags coming up that were?
I want to talk about that with the school, because when we started getting it organized, I'm in a position of authority, and that's not something I do real well at. I don't know why I thought I could do that, but you've got people under you that need to cooperate and help you get this stuff together. And it's work and it's commitment. It is commitment to where you need to show up every day and be there. And we had one girl there that was very resistant. I don't know if it was me or what, but she's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And no, I'm not going to show up. Or even having a meeting and where is she? And she's not there. And it was really becoming annoying for me when that would happen. And I'd say something and she was backed up. Oh no, she's busy. She can't do this. Well, this lady ended up having cancer. And so it just got worse and worse, and to where she wasn't going to be in it at all. And I kind of felt like a lot of other people followed suit with their commitment and would not be there on a consistent basis. So it really fell apart. There, I can think of a couple of ladies that were there faithfully. They were just that way about everything. And I really appreciated them. It was great. I mean, it wasn't me on a power trip. I was just trying to get this thing going. So
yeah, it doesn't sound like, I mean, it doesn't sound like you were on a power trip at all. It just sounds like you really had a heart to really want to these kids to actually learn when we were in an environment where we were getting nowhere. And so for actually someone to come in and, I mean, that was a good thing. Someone trying to come in and do
it was
that.
a good thought. I
think it could have been a good idea, a good thought. And you're trying to do the right thing, but when like you had the head of, oh, that's ultimately over everything, just coming at you like at every directions. For instance, you can't even get freaking chalk. Like it's just not going to do well. I mean,
it probably could have been foretold very easily there. But I did get some satisfaction because when everybody disbanded, I got a little group of kids over at my house, and I got one of the pastor's sons. He was 5 years old, a cutie. And I had my son, which is very difficult to homeschool your own son. So I was grateful to have someone else. And then one of the little girls from around the corner of a very large family. And we had a little homeschool table in my house. We did that for at least a year or two. I loved it. And then I got to teach. So it was good. But if I could continue on with this person that gave me the grief at the school, her cancer just got worse and worse to where she was living with the pastor's daughter. And that was the time when I had to go over there and help them get the dust off that curio cabinet.
Okay. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's a whole crazy
story. It is. But at this time, you're going along with it. Oh my God, her hair started falling out. So they shaved it. She was bald. And then she started going blind. And when she was blind, she became so spiritual that she knew everything about everybody. And you would come in there and visit her, and she would start praying with you, and she would start telling you what God thought about you and what you were doing wrong and how, you're messing up your life. If you were the right person, you might have gotten encouragement, but there were people flocking to this saint of a person. It was the strangest thing, and I got to say on my part, I'm going, oh, she's hearing from God. Great. You go in there and you might hear something harsh, or you might hear something encouraging. I think mostly harsh, unless you were the right person in the inner circle. But it was uncanny how she knew so many details about you. It must have been God, because how would she know those details about you and your marriage or whatever? So I went in there, and of course I was a bad wife and disrespectful. And
that's what she told you?
I'm sorry, what?
That's what she told you?
Oh yeah. Oh, wow. And I had to go back repentant. I was like, I don't know how, but okay, I'm a bad wife. I mean, I was ready to take on, you tell me what the truth is, and that's the truth. Yeah. There's a certain kind of person. I mean, I'm not saying everyone's like that, but there's a certain type of person that fits so well in a cult where you're allowing someone to tell you the truth. And it's a person with absolutely no boundaries. You just don't have boundaries. Like, you're crazy. If you know the truth, then you wouldn't have accepted that. So anyway, I accepted it, and it just got more and more carried away. I remember one time we had a church service. Here she is, blind and bald, and they were carrying her on a chair. They had men holding the four legs of the chair, like Cleopatra, marching down the aisle. And then she gets up in front of the church and she prophesies and says, this is going to happen and that, and this person did this. I don't even know. I can't remember, but there's just a little part of me, and that, I don't know if you remember that, Sari, or not, but there's a part of me going, this is a circus. This is getting out of hand. And I did not really like this person. She was so resistant to me that I was not particularly fond of her. So do you remember that happening?
I remember everything
Okay.
because the way everything ended was
Did you
just
think it was crazy?
insane. This is like a freaking Lifetime movie within a cult. Like it's like a whole side story within itself. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah,
So with that, did you ever try to go to the eldership about that?
not at all. I was
Okay.
thinking,
I thought you had said,
this is,
okay, maybe I was speaking with someone else and they had mentioned
no,
it.
I didn't, not at all. But I
So
was going, this is weird and I don't like her, but I must be really unspiritual. You know, it's always back on you. If you're beaten down and if you're submitting, then it's all on you. So then come to find out, and there are a lot more details, but I was not personally involved in it, so I'm not going to say any of that, but I'll just tell my part. At some point, one of the pastor's daughter's husband caught on that maybe she was not really blind. And so he walked up to her and slapped. This is what I heard. I don't know. Slapped his hands and she blinked. And so they came out and said, she's been faking it all along. She's been pretending to go to the doctor's appointments, doing some other things that I'll let you get into that were just bizarre and twisted. And so then it was, she's on her way out, they're coming to pick her stuff up and she's gone. And my reaction to that was, there are kooky people in this world, but it just is horrible that the ministry, who's supposed to be all seeing, all knowing, didn't catch on to this. Now I could say the same thing about me, but I'm not standing up there saying I'm hearing from God. You know, I'm one of the dummies. I just follow along. So I was very disillusioned. I was like, okay, you guys aren't discerning what's wrong and what's right. You went along with this and actually upheld her in her sin. So I remember the assistant pastor coming up to me and going, Anita, are you all right? And I'm like, no, not really. But I didn't want to say any more because that was kind of my first big step out of the ministry. So
yeah, for sure. And I won't go into too much detail about this either, because this is a whole nother topic subject that we may talk about here soon. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this situation was a big red flag for some people that ended up leaving. I mean, this lady pretty much fakes cancer for a few years and is just held in the first couple of years, is just held in the highest regard, esteem. You know, obviously, you think someone has cancer, you're gonna pray for them, you're gonna do whatever you can to help them. I mean, it's a dire, sad situation. And
yeah,
I mean, just everything she got away with is just insane. It's
yeah.
like,
It would have been understandable if they would have just supported her, but letting her become a saint or whatever they, you know,
I mean, having people were like taking shifts, going over there, bathing her, just all kinds of weird stuff. People were constantly over there. And like I said, I don't want to get into too much detail now because it's like I'm just trying to figure out how much I want to say and not say. But
yeah,
it is just such a crazy, insane story of how I mean, everybody was manipulated by this person. But when you have people going to eldership saying, look, I think something's off here. I feel something's off. Can we talk about this? Can we do something? And they're going, you're out of the will of God. You don't know what you're talking about. I mean, this person is going to get treatment in Houston and walking around the hospital or going to movies, having movie tickets, and then like come to find out she like did I believe she did have some kind of disease, but it was not cancer.
yeah, yeah.
And it, you know, it just that the eldership wouldn't even let people talk or communicate and say, okay, we need to deal with this. We need to really ask this person what's going on. Can we see some records? Like, can we go with you? I mean, people actually went with her to get treatment, but they would wait in the waiting room. I don't think anybody was actually there unless she was getting the actual treatment. I don't know if they ever saw her getting actual treatment. But to my knowledge, my parents took her a couple times, and my mom would say they would be in the waiting room, and the whole time she was just walk around the hospital,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
maybe
It was
shaving her head somewhere or putting on makeup.
makeup with
She has
no eye.
eyeliner on. How does she have eyeliner? Oh, she did it herself. God went through her and led her to do her makeup.
It's the gift of the Spirit. Didn't you read that in
Spirit
your
of God.
Bible?
Come on now, we're getting filled with the Holy Spirit. There was something real crazy. Yeah, we would do all kinds of crazy church services during this time, trying to pray for this person. And one of the things we did is, like, we had started the service, I guess, in the chapel, and then so this is all on campus grounds, and there's trailers everywhere. And so we go from the chapel to her trailer, and everybody's holding hands, dancing around her trailer in a circle, praying to Jesus. God heal her.
Oh my gosh. I don't remember that.
If
I
that does
must have
not,
blocked it out.
if that does not sound like a cult, then I don't know what does.
I know. Insane, right? Insane. But
but like I said, I can we'll probably go into
there are
more
people
detail about this in another episode. But
yeah,
it was just,
I do want to say there are people that are very convincing, narcissists that are very good at convincing you of anything, and they're you could say that it's partially the fault of people that join. They should have been more aware, but it could catch anybody. If you think you couldn't be involved, you could, because these guys are so good. They're such good liars, and they're so convincing, and typically they're charismatic, so you get drawn into this. It's not all foolishness, although I think some people would have seen it a little quicker than I would have. But anyway, I think it's easy to be fooled.
oh, for
Especially
sure.
if you're one of those empathetic people and you're wanting to think the best about everybody. That's not a bad quality, but you have to develop some boundaries and have some clear confidence in your abilities to make sure that never happens again. I have thought about this, and nobody's ever gone back. Think about it. Nobody's ever gone back, have they? To where they've left out of disgust and then gone back?
Yeah, people have gone back.
Oh, they have? Okay. All right. Wow.
I mean, they would call it like they would call it like someone backslid, like backslid.
Oh, okay.
They would tell people whether they started drinking again, they started using again, and then they would come back, maybe go through the program again, or like.
Oh, okay. Well, that's involving life controlling issues.
Yeah,
and I don't know about that.
It wasn't just that. I mean, they would become a part of the church again. I mean, my dad came and went. He would leave, come back, leave.
Oh, he would? Okay.
Yeah. The only reason they kept letting him back was because he was giving money. He kept giving money because they wouldn't. If you left, I mean, they wouldn't just let any random person just come back, and you weren't allowed to talk to the person. But somehow my dad was one of the people that was just able to keep coming back. And the only thing I can contribute it to is that the whole time he kind of would keep giving money here and there. So
money had a great influence on how you were treated over there. And I remember a man from South America that came, and he moved into the trailer that, can I say her name? Pam? She's been interviewed.
Yeah, moved into her trailer, or?
Yeah, he lived in her trailer. I don't know if it was before or after, but David had charmed him and, just got him completely enamored with the center, and he moved in. And I think he was one of those people that thought there was going to be some kind of monetary compensation. And he found out there wasn't, and he was gone in no time. I mean, that was a family. They moved from South America. Do you remember this guy? He barely spoke English. I don't even know his name.
Yeah, because I think I know who you're talking about. And he lived with us for a period of time.
Oh, did he? Okay. Sweet guy. Really sweet. And he couldn't stay there because he didn't have the money. And I think that money had a big influence. I'm wondering how much it did for us. Oh, well, we'll put you in charge of the school. Because I did have savings and I did have money. And my parents had money, and I don't know, but we lived very frugally there. So anyway, but
still, though, even if you did have some kind of funds, it doesn't. You should you should be compensated somewhat if you're like giving all your time to trying to do the school and your husband is volunteering and doing all this stuff and you can't even get a freaking meal ticket.
Yeah, I think it really bothered me because I would answer phones in the office and I would hear David going, go send one of the students. I want a meal from Papacitos. And that was something regular.
And Papacitos was like 45 minutes away.
Yeah. And the gas and the money. And back then it was cheaper, but it was just terribly frivolous to me. And I remember another lady, she is an elder's wife now, and he owns a construction company. But when she was single, she's like, man, I can't hang around those guys. They spend money. She was talking about the daughter of the pastor and her then boyfriend, but became her husband. I can't hang around them. They spend money too much. I can't spend money like that. So what bothered me was that there was such a discrepancy between, you know, any kind of compensation for your work and this elaborate lifestyle. Now, I know many people listening believe in, what is it, you know, the prosperity doctrine, that God, if you're in God's favor, then you're going to have all the money in the world. But you see people misusing it, and I could name ministry names, but I won't go there. You know, they're just terribly misusing people. And I have that opinion that that is not what ministry is about. I don't think you should be poor, but I think you should live like the rest of the people that are around you. And one of the things that happened, I'm going to get off on a story here. I went, when I was involved in the school, I went over to help a lady with some curriculum who had quite a lot of children. And I went back there with the kids for some reason. There was a big old hole in her floor, huge hole. You could see the ground in that thing. I mean, the wind was coming up through it, and there were snakes out there. I didn't see any, but I'm just saying,
yeah,
I just stood there. How do you live with this hole? How long has this been here? I don't remember what she said, but it had been there a while. And I went back and told my husband then, how could someone in this campus have a house? She didn't, her husband had left at that time, just recently. How can she have a house like that? And everybody's going to Papacitos and out, you know, going to Europe and travel trailers and campers. And anyway, I just thought it was wrong. So I wrote a letter to the elders because I think that was the proper way to do things back then. I don't think you called or anything, and said, this is just wrong that this woman is being neglected. And we have so many resources here that everyone could share. There's just no excuse for this happening. And I don't know if I use that word, no excuse. You guys are so wonderful. How can we help this woman? It was taken by the assistant pastor as extremely rude and disrespectful. And I wasn't called in or anything, but when I talked to him, he said, you've got the wrong attitude and that you need to straighten up. You can't be that way. I guess they felt like I was pointing fingers, but that again is a narcissistic tendency. There can't be one little thing because they take it as a reflect. Their image is all important. And you do not smear their image for anything. That is not godly. That is not godly. Where's the humbleness in that? So anyway, but they did finally end up fixing her house, which was good.
Gosh, just like after how many years? I do remember that. I remember it was a big family, and they just were living in a house that was not that great. And then
they weren't the only ones.
Yeah, there were a few families that had some large families, and you know, that was kind of may have been kind of the beginning of the first fruits of when you're having to give a certain amount of money at the beginning of the year. And they expected all these people to still give like all this money to the church. And it's like, I can't even fix my floor or get food on the table for all my 100 kids. Like,
not only did they have to tithe, but none of the money ever went to the people that needed it. The widows, you know, you should be helping people that need it. So you're sitting there thinking that there's something wrong here. They're in it for themselves. So
when
go ahead.
Sorry.
There was another incident too that, I mean, just things started happening left and right. There was another incident where they pulled all the couples in one time, one evening. And I thought, oh my gosh, something huge has happened. I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but they decided that they were going to, it was the pastor and the assistant pastor and maybe a few of the elders, that they were going to straighten up these households that were fraying at the edges, not in line. And they just went into personal details and reamed these couples. Well, you did this and you're not even sleeping together and your house is a mess. And I was appalled, the things that were being said that were, everybody runs their house differently. It's not in the Bible how it should be. I was appalled at what they were saying about these poor people. And I was scared to death that we were going to be next. I mean, everybody's got plenty of dirt. So we're just shaking in our boots that they're going to turn on us. They went through, I wouldn't doubt it was probably about 5 different families. And none of them were elders. You know, I don't think any of them were in the favored circle. There's a royalty there and you get treated differently depending on who you are. But, and they had to cry and repent and it was awful.
Did they say why they brought everybody in?
No, if they did, I've forgotten. I don't know. It was just basically there's too much going on in this campus and this needs to be taken care of. And looking back on it, you just think, yeah, this was a control thing. It's all, that's the name of the game is control. And if people are starting to get a little independent, start thinking on their own, pull them in, beat them down and get them under submission. That is the whole idea. And that goes for any narcissist, not only in a cult, get them in line. But
I guess that's maybe what I was about to ask. Like, that should be something that if there is something going on within a marriage, that should be something discussed with just those 2 people and someone
absolutely
else. Not like in a group setting. And I guess in a group setting, when you're doing that, just like you said, it's belittling people and bringing all their stuff out in front of everyone instead of, you know, more on a one-on-one basis or whatever.
Yeah, there's so much biblically wrong with it, but I found a lot of good stuff that I listened to help me sort through what's biblical and what's not. But anyway, I won't go into that because I'm not a pastor. But there was a church service one day that one of the people that one of the elders that ran a construction business, my ex-husband worked for him. And his wife got up and started singing the praises about one of their new employees. He also was an elder and he just recently started working there and just talking about, oh, we're just so appreciative of this guy. He's done so much and he's such a hard worker. Well, I'm sitting next to my then husband who had been working for this man for several years, had increased his skill level to where he was marketable. I mean, he was very talented. He knew, he just had a real mechanical mind and he was an amazing carpenter, he still is. And so he'd been on top of roofs and helping this man for years and years, and not a word was said about him. And I really got offended over that. And now looking back, I'm like, yeah, he's an elder, you know, and you're invisible if you're not in the inner circle. So this really propelled me into making some moves that were eventually translated into us moving away. I thought, to heck with this, I'm going to go back and teach. I can get a teaching job. I was still young. And I applied and got a job with Lamar. And then I pulled out my savings and helped my husband go back to pilot school, which he wanted to be a pilot. And so he started taking private lessons, which is really expensive, but we put our money there and I had a life. Great. Oh yeah. And we lived in the campus still, but I'd commute to school, which was in Sugar Land. And it was going really good. You know, I was back in the thing that I loved and it was hard. Again, I was away from my kids and I have a window there. If I'm looking out, there's someone delivering something. But anyway, I had kids and the kids had to be shuffled and it was hard on them because when you teach, it's totally, there's a guy getting ready to do delivery. it's totally consuming for you, and you end up not spending a lot of time with them again, just like I did at the center. But it was really good, and I was happy, and we were just going to continue that way for a while. And my final red flag, I'll go into this story, was I was walking across campus, and I walked by. I don't remember having an attitude. I just remember I was getting a little more independent and not worrying about what people thought of me. And I didn't care at that point, you know. I did at one time, but I didn't then. And I said hello to her wrong or something. I ended up getting pulled into 115.
The great 115.
I'm in the 115 club.
Oh man, you know,
that was my first time.
Yeah, are you a one-timer in that 115?
I'm a one-timer. It might have been the money.
So the 115 was where everybody was brought for counseling session. You were reamed over the coals.
Yeah.
We're getting you called into what we need you to go ahead and come up to 115. Oh crap. Trouble. What did I do?
I gotta go to the bathroom.
All right, guys, get your stuff. We're leaving.
Oh, and it gets even funnier because I'm already loaded for bear. I'm disgusted about that they were all so fooled about this person with cancer. And I'm disgusted about how my husband was treated and what else, you know, some of the things I've said. So I'm already up to here. And I sit down, and there is the pastor's daughter and one of the elders' wives and another elder's wife. There could have been 4 people. I can't remember. But I remember sitting down and going, well, I'm really glad you brought me in here because I don't like any of you except this one.
Did you say that?
I said that.
Holy crap.
I know.
Nobody ever like talks to them like you like, yeah, you cannot talk to them like that.
No, you can't. So was it stupidity? I don't know. You know,
I think that's awesome. Oh my God. I wish I had like some balls back then.
I think it was stupidity. It was just, I didn't realize how one of them is this extreme narcissist. So she just exploded on me, and another lady joined her. And anyway, I was beaten over the coals over that one. And I don't remember really backing up on that. I still held my ground. I mean, honestly, you know, I moved here to have a part of the community, to feel worth, like I was part of something important, that I was worthwhile. You know, I don't want to be discarded, and I want to be friends and have relationships. I had no friends. I had no relationships, except the lady that was so loving and was the soul of the center. She was awesome. I loved her. Crazy, but I loved her.
Yeah.
And
so let me go back real quick. You were brought into counseling because someone asked you if you were having a day or whatever, just the way you responded.
Yes, I forgot to say that. I'm sorry.
It was like all in just like, I guess the way you responded, and you were brought into counseling over this. Like, what the hell, man?
I was told that I had, I told you what it was. I was lacking in joy. I didn't have the joy of the Lord. That's it. I didn't have the joy of the Lord. So you don't have the joy of the Lord
on your countenance.
Yeah.
And so you're brought in.
And I had no idea. I mean, I was just plugging along. I was happy with my life. I didn't respond to the pastor's daughter like I should have. So, and I found it rather humorous that she said that I didn't have the joy of the Lord. This was coming from the pastor's daughter, because years ago we went on a field trip for the school. We went ice skating. We did several field trips, and we had 2 different buses. She was driving one, and there was a gentleman that was driving the other. That was a dad of 4 children. And very capable man. Somehow he made a wrong turn, got off somewhere, and the window out venom to this man. How could you get so lost? I've never seen anybody so stupid in all my life. You know, just berating him. And everyone in the bus was just staring at her. I just remember thinking, how can how can a pastor's daughter act that way? What gives you the right? And it wasn't anything, it was just a wrong turn, you know? So I was sitting there thinking, yeah, well, I guess I don't have that kind of joy of the Lord, you know?
For sure. Was it you? Did you say, was it you that told her, or she told you about the clothing thing?
Okay, so after I got it off my chest that I didn't like anybody, I turned to the pastor's daughter and I said, and you aggravate me because I go to church every day and I never see you in the same thing ever. I never see the same article of clothing. And she talked about going shopping and spending money. That costs money. And we're living, I mean, I didn't have money for groceries sometimes. My mother-in-law came over with a bag of groceries. I had savings, but I wasn't stupid. I wasn't gonna just eat all that up. So anyway, you know, we're all living just bare threads, and you're dressing like you're a movie star all the time. And that didn't go over well either. So yeah, she just really fussed and fought. And I don't remember what I ended up doing. I don't think I backed down, but I could have. I'd like to think my brain that I stood up and went, but I don't think they would have let me out of the room unless I backed down. So I probably did, you know about that. So got out of the room, and then the following Sunday, church services, we were at a different place. This one I think was in Wharton somewhere, and it's smaller. And I was the topic of the day, the whole day. The minute that everybody start talking, her husband got up and said, my wife can live any way she wants, and nobody ever should have the right to tell her what she can and cannot do. And if she wants to buy a mink coat, she can, and drive around in a Mercedes. And when she gets that record contract, she's going to be rich. And that person that accused her is going to be poor and destitute.
Jeez.
And then, yeah.
God, why would you ever like say that about someone?
I don't know.
Like, you're going to be poor and destitute.
The words have to be as poison as possible. There is no, what is it, conscience? You know, some of these people that are affected by this disorder of narcissism, there is no line, there is no conscience, and the goal is to beat someone down. The goal is power. I forgot to tell you another thing I said. I just let it all out. I complained that those trips to Europe just seem absolutely useless. I don't think you're doing any kind of ministry. I think you're living it up. You're going to Venice and Paris and Rome and staying in nice places and spending tons of money while everybody over here is living with holes in their floors or whatever, you know. So then, so going back to the Sunday service, the pastor got up and had a turn at me, and then the assistant pastor, I remember him standing up and saying, I can't believe how ridiculous it is that somebody thinks that David is going to Europe for his own pleasure. He is going on missions. How could anybody think that that is what he's doing? That is just so outlandish and so out of line. I swear that service, I think the whole service was about me. And that's such bullshit, because I went on those trips with those people. You did? Did you go to Europe? Yeah, I went like 3-4 times for a month at a time. Yeah, I saw everything. Like, was it?
I will say, living? No, I will say like some of the places we stayed in were not. They were like at hostels and like at people's houses. That was the majority of it. We did stay in hotels every once in a while or sometimes, but the majority was like staying with people within the church that we were at, or in hostels that were kind of little run down and stuff. Now, look, whenever we first went, I think that, well, we were very naive to stuff, but I feel like it felt more like a little more of a mission trip, because it was like we were praying for people, we were reaching out to people and stuff, and like we did have good hearts, us that were younger and trying to do something positive.
Oh, I'm sure you did. I didn't realize that.
But yeah, but then like I've talked about this before, I believe on another episode, but then like towards the end, the last trip I went on was 2007. it was totally different. Like, it was just like, I mean, I was glad I was there, but at the same time, it was like, I don't feel like we're really doing like missionary work anymore. I feel like this is more like, it's more like concerts, and like we're holding concerts at venues, and like people are getting drunk and then driving, and then the guy, me and the other guy that I was with, we were pretty much like the adults like the whole time, and he had to drive because DK would get too drunk and stuff. And it was just like, look,
Got
I
out
have
of
no
hand.
problem with drinking. I don't care. Do you, whatever. I drink. It's just, don't claim to like get all these funds to go on a mission trip. And then like, if you're not really in poor countries and like trying to, it's like weigh something else. So I think it kind of did start out as really as trying to reach out to people. And then like
Yeah.
along the way, you know, towards the end, it just got more and more drinking involved, and just all kinds of and there was some weird stuff that happened on that trip too. I'm gonna do
I'm sure. Yeah. For
freaking
another day.
and
I
bizarre.
caught something you said. I think you were talking about raising funds and stuff. Was that kind of part of the reason, you know, you go to these churches and then they give you money to continue?
Like churches we would go to in Europe,
Europe, yeah.
they would occasionally, I believe they would occasionally, if we did a church service, they would occasionally take up like offering or something for
Oh,
us.
okay. But
And
it
we would
wasn't
get-
raising money for anybody, or
I honestly don't know.
yeah.
I don't
Okay.
think that it was. I don't know where that money actually went. I've never thought about that, because we would raise funds before we went, and then that's some of the money we had. But then, like, I do remember offering being at some churches that were, and I don't know where that money went, if David took it all, or if he sent it back home, or if it was to continue the trip. I have no idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Anyway, so let's see where I left off. So after that counseling session in the room with everyone, I was done. It didn't take it all. Whatever they said, it just fell right off like water on a duck's back. And I remember walking around campus, and I would just say this over and over to myself: ask me if I care. I'd walk by someone just in my mind, ask me if I care. I don't care. You know, that was my way of swearing. And came home one day and I told my husband, I want to leave, which is, people don't understand this, but this is something very scary, because you can have your spouse say, oh, I'm telling, you know, or baloney, you can leave and I'll keep the kids. You just never know what he's going to do, because you don't even dare. God, it's almost like communism. You don't even dare think it in your house. You don't talk about anything because it might come out, you know, there are no secrets. So anyway, and he, to my great joy, said, yes, I want to leave too.
That's
so
good.
we worked it out so that, okay, what are we going to say? We're going to say that your mom's sick and that we need to live with her. And she hasn't got anyone else to help her out. We got to move there. They were fine with that. I don't know if they bought it or not. It seemed this
Was
person
she actually sick?
No.
Man.
No. Not at all. She was sick that we were in Hungerford. She came and visited one time and she cried the whole service.
Oh no.
And I didn't even want to ask her why she was crying, but I knew she was so unhappy we were there.
Yeah.
But she put her son in there when he was a teenager. So, but it had changed a lot. So anyway, we got out, and you talk about some of the people that had a hard time acclimating and stuff. I can say there's a little bit in your mind going, oh, I'm rebelling against God and I'm going to die in hell or go to hell. And so there was a little bit of that going on, but I also was maybe rebellious enough to be like, okay, fine, I'd rather do that than be here. And so we found a really dead church to go to. We moved to Palacios, Texas, which was a beautiful city. Oh, I don't know if you've ever been to Palacios, but it's a little town and on the coast, had a little coastal house. And we found the deadest church we could go to. We went to a Presbyterian church and we were just fine. I was like, wow, this is what leaving's like. I really enjoy this.
Wow, man.
But
Well,
ended up getting divorced and things did fall apart. But I don't attribute that to anything. That's life.
right. I mean, life happens. There's mistakes that we make along the way. There are devastating things that happen along the way, and you can't contribute that to leaving a church that you were at.
Yeah,
And, and I think, I mean, when you're in that environment for so long, your mind gets so twisted and to
it
actually
is.
believing these things. And
It is.
so, and just like you
Biblically,
said, yeah, and just like you said, it is scary as hell trying to get out because you were
yeah,
like, everybody's gonna disown me. God, is God still gonna be there? Is my husband gonna want to go? Is my significant other gonna want to go? Oh my
yeah.
God, like there's just all these thoughts going through your head. So I can't imagine what you
Hmm.
were thinking, and to actually like do it. I mean, I'm so glad you guys got out and everything.
Yeah.
And
And I really was able to get things straightened out biblically for myself, which was really good. There's a guy named John MacArthur. He talks a lot about cults, and I, there'll be people that disagree with me, but charismatic churches. And I was able to sort out what I knew was right and wrong for what it's worth. Knowing is different than doing, but it did help. That really helped me. I also got counseling, not necessarily for the church, but for the narcissistic effects of people in my life. And oh man, that helps so much
wow.
to understand how a narcissist works and how you play into it. It was the best thing in the world. And not only, we should all know what they do, but we should all know more about how we need to overcome. I love the name of your website, because it's not just the cold, it's the overcoming. And that is the other half. It's not just knowing, oh, he was a narcissist and he did this. It's knowing, okay, what weakness in me allowed me to break down my boundaries and say, no, that's not okay. I'm not going to do that. I mean, if we can learn how to say no, if we are aware of what we want and what our goals are and what we're worth, that counseling really helped me. I had a good counselor, but they're hard to find. And I got to say that if anyone's looking for counselors, please look for somebody if you're still involved in, your mind being all messed up from this controlling cult. Find somebody that knows about narcissism, because there's so many people. I mean, they're out there everywhere. They are out there everywhere. I don't want to say they're like boogeymen, but a lot of people are. And so that's just going to be life. But a lot of people that are counseling don't understand it. They deny it, and they don't understand what they can do to you.
Yeah.
And to not have someone skilled in that particular, because it's a game. It's just a big mind game. And you could get this wacky counselor that goes, well, you need to make peace with them. Or, I had some bad counselors along the way. Get a good one that knows about narcissistic abuse.
For sure. I totally agree. And, it's all about getting that kind of help that you can and everything. And as much as, I mean, I've talked to several different types of people that have come out of the cult that we were at, and some people's experiences were not as extreme as others. And so they're like, well, I don't get what the big deal is. And I don't get what, I didn't see any of that when I was there. I'm like, even though you didn't, there was horrible stuff that went on, but even if you didn't see that, you still were controlled. You were in that
Exactly
aspect of everything that was going on.
Yeah.
And you just don't want to come to terms with it. And
yeah,
it just is it is coming to terms with those things and just realizing, oh crap, like these things were going on. I was controlled. I was mentally, spiritually abused. It was just,
it's like being in a fog. The people that are still there
it's
are
still
not
being like
able,
yeah.
they're not able to see how they're being controlled. There is a book, I read a lot of books when I got out of there. I just started reading to help. That's my therapy. And there's a book called Out of the Fog, and it's about coming out of cults. There's so many of them, but you're in a fog and you can't tell reality.
For sure.
So.
Yeah. So many crazy stories and stuff.
Yes. But we're all doing good, and I'm retired now and got a beautiful house out in the country, and just, I rarely think about this place. I started thinking about it a lot more when this woman that was so influential died. That was the heart of the ministry. And
Yeah. You're talking
that,
about the person that was my godmother, I think.
yep, she was my kid's godmother too.
Yeah.
Loved her.
Yeah.
She was the heart of Jesus. I mean, she just was so full of grace and sacrificing, and she did her weird things, but
She was a little nutty, but at the end of the day,
but hey, we're all kooky.
we're all a little crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, and
For sure.
yeah,
Thank you.
have
Thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, it is very interesting hearing everyone's stories and everything, and just the concepts, and just like realizing at different times, oh wait, I was dealing with this, you were dealing with that, but there was a certain situation going on that we were like, for instance, the person that had cancer, like we all knew, like it was like, wait, what? You were, oh, putting things, it's like a puzzle piece, putting things together. And you're like, oh my gosh, like that was going on. I had no idea. And then like, you know.
And it may be to where that place is just becoming a non-entity. It looked pretty bad last time I drove through town, but it's very important for us to get that story out, because there are other places like that. And if there's anything still going on there, I hope that somebody that is thinking about joining or going in the program listens to these before they do. For sure. And that makes me brave enough to get on and do this. Yeah, that's why I like every person that comes on. I'm just so grateful and thank you. That it can't always be easy to do, but I'm definitely thankful. Yeah, harder for some, that's for sure. Yeah. We'll go ahead and end here. And like I said, thank you. And thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. I hope in some way this helps those of you out there. I do have Colton Overcoming on Facebook and Instagram. And if you have a story to share, the email is coltonovercoming@gmail.com. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Oh, let me see how I. Bye.